Hello and welcome to another First Impressions video. I'm Gina, and this time around I have with me Sideshow Collectibles' brand new Spider-Man premium format statue. Now in these videos I like to count down the top features that really captured my attention after I unboxed the statue. So this is not a full review, but rather it's just my initial thoughts on this statue. Now let me just start by saying how pleased I am that this latest piece depicts the famous web slinger in an action pose. You can see here his torso is fully extended and every muscle in his upper body is flexed and on display. This piece is clearly one big tribute to Spider-Man's athletic abilities. Now, as dynamic as the statue is, surprisingly, the first feature that really stood out to me after I unboxed it, number one on my list, is the near perfect paint application, especially on the black lines. Of all the Spider-Man statues in my collection, this one probably has the best paint application, which makes me think that perhaps Sideshow and their factories enacted a new process for painting these razor-thin lines, because there's definitely a higher level of precision compared to what we've seen with Sideshow's previous Spider-Man statues. Now, while the line work has been improved, the color tones of the blue and red costume is almost identical to what we've seen before. So if you're a fan of the previous premium format statue, you'll probably be happy with the costume on this latest piece as well. Okay, so I want to take a quick moment to point out the small, very tiny contour lines that are etched into the blue portion of the costume. So let's jump back to my countdown, and the second feature that really stood out to me after the statue was fully assembled is the collector's portrait shown here, which I've now switched out and have displayed on the statue. Now, I do have the exclusive version of the statue. It comes with two portraits, and to be perfectly candid, at the time of the pre-order, I just had no interest in this portrait and never even expected to use it. But seeing the smaller sculpted eyes on this collector's portrait in person really made me prefer this collector's portrait a little more. The fact that the eyes are asymmetrical give the statue a bit more flavor. Okay, so at this point, I'd be remiss if I didn't discuss the seam in the neck. When I switched to the exclusive large-eyed portrait shown here, the neck seam is definitely more obvious from certain angles. Of course, this could just be unique to the statue I received. Now, despite the seam on the neck, the quality of both portraits is almost identical in terms of paint and sculpt, so I suspect that, the majority of collectors are going to be evenly divided on which portrait they prefer. Okay, so moving away from the portraits, the third feature that just really captured my attention is the sculpted body and anatomy, which I would describe as ultra realistic. Now, yes, the muscles are extremely toned, and this body design is lean and really athletic, but at the same time, there's no superhero embellishments. The limbs are just perfectly proportioned. This lifelike anatomy definitely infuses a great level of realism into what is otherwise a very comic book themed statue. Alright, so leaving the countdown for just one moment. Earlier in the video I mentioned the seams on the neck, so now I want to quickly point out the seams on Spider-Man's forearms as well. This appears to be built into the design of the statue, so it's not a quality control issue per se, but it is just something that you should be aware of. Okay, so we reached the final feature on my countdown, the final feature that really drew me into the statue after I assembled it, and it's all of the broken wires and cables that are buried within Dr. Octopus's tentacles. Now, make no mistake, the true focal points of the base are the tentacles and the computer screen. But I put these wires on my list nonetheless because I found them to be such a welcome surprise when I unboxed the statue. Okay, so while I'm on the topic of the base, I kind of wish that these tentacles were given a glossy finish. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not always a fan of the metallic painted surfaces, but with this statue in particular, I think that the shiny tentacles would have contrasted really nicely against Spider-Man's red and blue costume. Okay, so we reached the end of my first impressions video, and I had a lot of fun counting down the features that just really captured my attention. And I invite you to do the same. So in the comment section below, tell me what really struck you about this statue. I look forward to reading your comments. So take care for now, and I'll see you in the next video.